بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
The scary reality this ayah reveals is that we're never alone. Of course, Allah Azza wa Jalla is witness all the time, but even beyond that, the angels have been assigned for each of us. We are never, ever, ever alone. That doesn't exist for us. Inna alaykum lahafidhin kiraman katibin. Something you should note about this ayah, and what is the connection between this and the sky and the piercing light? Ulama have commented that the night, the stars are so far away, and yet it is as though these are eyes. In our times we would say they're like cameras stationed towards the earth. Because when Allah says, وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ, He has made the sky a witness, and the tariq, the star, the brilliant star, a witness. And a witness is obviously someone who sees something. So the star and the sky, they are seeing our behavior. And on the day of resurrection, perhaps they even are witness to our behavior. Allah says He has installed these magnificent witnesses, so it's not too far-fetched that each of you has been given personalized guardians over everything that you do. The other thing we find in the Sunnah literature, we find two kinds of angels. Angels that protect us from all kinds of troubles, that if they weren't there, that the shayateen would cause us all kinds of harm. That's we find in authentic Sunnah literature. Then of course we find the mention of angels in Quran and Sunnah that are recording our deeds. Now the difference between them in language is, here we say عَلَيْهَا حَافِظ, عَلَيْكُمْ حَافِظِينَ. The word ala means they are not there for you, they are there in a sense almost against you, watching over you, in other words documenting your deeds. If this was in kullu nafsin lamma laha hafiz, then they're there protecting you. That's referring to a different kind of angels. But that's not what's being talked about. In other words, this isn't talking about guardian angels in the way we think of that in English literature. Angels that are guarding you. But they're actually guarding the information of all of the deeds that you do. That's what they're there to guard. They're there to guard that nothing you do, even the wink of an eye, يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ, right? Even a little bit of a glimpse of an eye that doesn't escape. That's what they're there for. Not a single person is there that doesn't have a hafiz over them. Additionally, what this tells us is, this is it fits poetically into the theme of secrecy. This format is sort of unknown and rare and distant for the Arab. Just like that star is so distant. Just like for him the idea of the angel watching over him and everything he does is distant. So the format of the language is such. In kullu nafsin lamma alayha hafiz. And then we should note that this phrase is a great degree of emphasis in it. Don't ever lose sight of the fact that it is absolutely true that every single person, all times of all hours of all days, has a watcher over them, has a guardian over them. Some discourse that we should take into consideration in regards to this ayah. First of all, we find a hadith in regards to the other kind of angels, the ones that protect. Allah says in the hadith, or the messenger says in the hadith sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَكَّلَ بِالرَّحِمِ مَلَكًا. Allah has installed, even in the wombs, angels. He has appointed angels to guard and protect even in the wombs. From that time, we are not alone. And then forth. The other thing, حِفْظ هُوَ الرِّعَايَةِ الَّذِي يُرَاعِ الْمَحْفُوظ. This word hafiz comes from hifz, which is protection, that which is offered to the one that is being protected. In other words, these angels, in this case we said they're not protecting us necessarily, they're protecting the information, all of our deeds. They're guarding all of our actions and our behaviors, so all of them are thoroughly recorded. Now, the second thing that I should note here is why use the word kull and not use the word jami'. You see the ayah says, in kullu nafsin. And in the Quran, jami' is also used. Now jami', kull means every, and jami' means all together. So what's the difference between them? You see, if you use the word jami', it implies that the people are together. And only then they have a guardian over them. But kull means each and every one in their own individual place. Regardless of whether we're together or not, this is something that's taking place. So jami', for example, is used in the case of the next life and resurrection, because there, in fact, we will first be herded all together. وَإِن كُلُّ لَمَّا جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ. Jami' is used. But here, kull is used essentially. Okay. The other thing here is the word alayha preceding. In other words, Allah does not say in kullu nafsin lamma hafidun alayha. Alayha is not at the end, alayha is in the middle. This is what's called taqdeem. The benefit of knowing that is that every one of us has specifically been assigned an angel, or specifically been assigned a hafiz. That is for us. That's their job. Their job is us. As opposed to some other person, they have another angel assigned to them, and it's very, very particular to every single human being. This is part of the qadr and the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the word nafs is associated with that which is inside of us. The word insan is of course the whole human being, but the word alludes to more of forgetfulness because it comes from nasiya, so its theme has to do with forgetfulness. And we'll see how that applies in the next ayah. But this is about secrecy because the nafs thinks they have some things that can keep a secret, that nobody is going to find out. But Allah says, no, you have a guardian over you. Even that nafs that is known for keeping secrets, none of its secrets are safe because there's a hafiz over it. Alright, so then inshallah ta'ala we continue. فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ مِمَّا خُلِقَ. Then the human being should take a deep look. And the word fa here, first of all, it doesn't say لِيَنْظُرْ, it says فَلْيَنْظُرْ. The fa means then as a result. Then as a result. Meaning if a person realizes, has given thought to the fact that there are these brilliant stars that are a witness against him, that the entire sky, if you don't see the stars, it's cloudy. Allah didn't just take an oath by at-tariq that sometimes you see, sometimes you don't see. He took it for the whole sky first. As-sama, the sky is a witness. And then on top of that, if you see it, the tariq is also a witness. And Najm al-Thaqib is a witness. If you've pondered over these witnesses, and if you've pondered over the reality that there's a guardian over you, that is recording all of your deeds, then it should lead you to think, why is this not far-fetched? Why is this not a fantasy thing that we believe in? Because the average non-believer, when he hears this, he thinks we're talking about some fairy tale, some mythology of angels around us, and these stars are watching over us. Come on, they're just inanimate objects in space. They're nothing. It's just empty air. It's the vastness of space. Nothing's a witness. So they think this is the figment of our imagination. Allah Azza wa Jal calls this disbeliever to reflect in a different way. He calls him to say, Allah says, فَلْيَنْظُرْ. Then, if you're skeptical about all of this, then the human being should look carefully. They should look and reflect carefully. Nadhara is to stare at something and to think about it. Like for example, when Musa alayhi salam took out his hand and it was white, right? فَإِذَا هِيَ بَيْضَاءُ لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. It turned white for those to stare at, meaning people couldn't take their eyes off of the thing. Right? They're just staring at it. They're just, what is that? How did that get here? Allah uses that word for us. In other words, we should reflect deeply, look carefully into. And then the irony of the wording here, that's part of the imagery of the text is, we said darkness, secrecy, hiding. Nafs is something that hides. Right? The nighttime, tariq, alluding to the nighttime, something that hides. Allah says, look into what you were created from. Let the human being look into from what he was created. And the word for human being used is insan, because the human being tends to forget what he was created from. The human being gains credentials, or wealth, or status, or a name, or power, or authority in the earth, and forgets that he has some very pathetic, not just humble, pathetic beginnings, a dirty fluid that people wash off of their clothes. That's where his beginning is. So فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسان. Then you see the word mimma in the language. You see, normally we say mimma with an alif there. But this has been shortened mimma. Mimma is a kind of tasghir, also taqsir. It's been reduced, it's reducing the meaning of the word. In other words, how small a thing. Even in the language it's been reduced, because what he's been created from is something very small, very minuscule, very insignificant, so much so it doesn't even deserve to be called mimma khuliq. It should just be called mimma khuliq. Mimma khuliq. So, what is this return that Allah Azza wa Jal speaks of? Most of the Mufassirun comment that this return is of course returning the human being after he is dead back to life. But there's something really beautiful and profound in the use of this word here, because Allah speaks of the human being, the fluid going into the woman in the form of basically just a fluid, and then what comes out of her womb is a human being. So what is entered is something dead, and what is returned is something fully formed. Something minuscule goes in and something profound comes out. Allah returns it, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same way Allah says, if Allah can produce this return, after this fluid has gone in and turned out into a human being, Allah is capable then also of returning the human being from whatever form. If He can create the human being out of water and return him out of the womb, then the earth, the womb of the earth, will yield him back no matter what he turns into. So the earth is going to be talked about as a womb as the ayat continue. The word innahu here illustrates izalat ash-shak. What that implies is that there are people who are not willing to give this thought consideration. They'll go as far as to say, yes, the birth is miraculous. They'll go that far. But they were not willing to take that next step. Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving them that next step. إِنَّهُ عَلَى رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. In the eloquence of the surah, we don't find إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. And usually, so it says certainly He is capable of returning it. But the word He, a pronoun, is used typically when the noun is already mentioned. Like if you're telling someone a story and you say, once upon a time there was a man, the next sentence doesn't say the man went out to town, it says he went out to town, right? So the word he would be an illustration of a noun that was already mentioned. Interestingly, the word Allah hasn't occurred in the surah. Again, keeping His name secret, because that's part of the theme, enshrouding His name in secrecy in this surah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's part of the theme of the surah and also illustrates Allah Azza wa Jall's displeasure of the ones who have forgotten Him. May Allah not make us